All right, we're now live.
Hey everyone! Welcome to another exciting episode of Food, God, and Other Potpourri.
Yep, episode 5.
Episode 5!
We're so inconsistent with this. It's
Look,
it's pretty bad.
it's summer, alright? And we're two grad students. You gotta take it how it goes, right? Um, we try to create good content, so if we're too busy and it'd be too rushed, we don't want to go live and create really, really bad content. That wouldn't be so good.
There's a lot of bad content out there.
And we're not saying our content is great, but we try our best. So, but yeah, no, thank you for joining us for 5 episodes. It's like a half milestone. 10
Yeah.
is going to be a big deal, but
Yeah.
5 is the halfway point.
Congrats to those who watched episode 1. It doesn't exist anymore. So,
Yeah, episode 1 was a one-time only thing that just happened to not get recorded, purely accidentally.
um,
So.
yeah, my bad.
Yeah. But learning curve. So today, we're going to be talking about a little bit about movie reviews and a little bit of the culture behind those and sort of modern
Yeah, how things are kind of changing in the
things.
industry.
Yeah, how things are sort of shifting and changing and all sorts of things. So if you have a hot take, especially if you're on Twitch, and you want to ask us something or join in on the conversation, Paul is literally watching the Twitch chat as we're talking. So
Yeah.
if he notices something that's like really, really cool to add to the conversation, of course he's going to jump in.
Yeah, sorry, no hot tubs today.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh. But yeah, buddy. So let's get into it. So reviews, man.
Specifically movie reviews.
Movie reviews. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like Yelp and all this stuff. And I just think reviews in general are either people who had a really, really, really good time or a really, really, really bad time.
Yeah, there's no in between.
There's no in between. It's either this is the best food ever. You got to go to this place. This restaurant rocks. Or never go to this place. It's actually trash. You will get food poisoning. It's horrible.
I think that's also related to the type of person they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether they're like a shitty person or a patient one.
Right? Yeah, because if you walk into a restaurant and especially if you've worked in a restaurant before or any sort of customer service thing, you can tell when somewhere is short-staffed. Hi, Katie. This is our podcast mascot.
Yes.
But you can tell when someone is short-staffed or not.
Yeah. You can
And I always keep that in the back of my mind, that especially during COVID and stuff like that, you have people who are not necessarily at full capacity yet. And they're trying their best to put out good quality food. It could just take slightly longer than usual.
Well, there's like a work shortage right now. No one wants to go back to work.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's so. Yeah, I'm just and just even before the pandemic though, I think people are just, and you're right. It's sort of what someone brings to it as well. Sort of sometimes, if you see, and that's why I like Amazon in this way, that like Amazon breaks down the reviews. This percentage 5-star reviews. This percentage 4-star, 3, 2, and 1. So if someone has 10,000 5-star reviews and 200 1-star reviews, okay, needless to say, this is probably a pretty good product, right?
Yeah.
But I think most places don't break it down like that.
When you brought in Amazon, I thought you were gonna refer to how they treat their workers, which is not that great.
Well, yeah, that's different. Okay, so that's positive Amazon reviews. How they display review information, very good. The workhorse mentality of what they do in the warehouses, and they're like, go get, go. There's actually a Doctor Who episode where I forgot which season it is. I think it was the first season with the new Doctor, who's now been on for a couple of seasons now. But one of the episodes, I remember it had Lee Mack in it. Lee Mack is this really hilarious comedian from Britain. If you haven't seen his stuff, go, not now, but after this podcast, go look up Lee Mack. He's a pretty funny guy.
Yeah, please stay. No.
Yeah, yeah, don't go look it up now. But he was in it, and they were sort of working at a warehouse, and the warehouse workers were disappearing and getting put into robot suits or something. It's very Doctor Who, very sci-fi. sort of deal.
What, being
But,
assimilated into the Cybermen?
right, exactly. So, but that it was a spoof on that, and
Mhm.
yeah. But Amazon, treat your workers better, but good job on the reviews. See, positive and minuses. Everyone's got their pluses and minuses, right?
I mean, yeah, it depends on how you view it.
Because Yelp just seems to average everything. And look, some of it's unfair.
I've heard awful things about Yelp about extortion, them extorting, or businesses so that good reviews are shown first before bad reviews. It's pretty interesting.
Wow. So they're just like, and there's a little money under the table. Make sure the good reviews come up first.
Yeah, basically. And then if they don't accept it, they bad review bomb it. Like have fake reviews that are just awful.
Oof. My biggest problem with Yelp is that it just averages everything. And look, some of it's not fair. And people who solely make decisions off Yelp reviews, I don't understand it. I have never seen an IHOP with more than 3 stars.
I don't like IHOP.
I know, but I'm saying there's a particular situation where you're going to have IHOP.
Mhm.
It is late. You've been partying.
It's like 2 a.m.
And now you want pancakes. Okay.
But instead of going to IHOP, there's a better solution. Just go to Waffle House.
Don't go to Waffle House.
The food there tastes better than IHOP food, in my opinion.
But you might also get shot by a trucker.
I'd take that risk. Trust me, when I was at one of my colleges, I would always go to Waffle House at like 4 a.m.
Oh my god.
I'd take my bike, leave the dorm, and just go to Waffle House, hang out there for like 2 hours.
FGP audience, IHOP or Waffle House. The choice is yours. Okay?
Yeah, Waffle House over IHOP.
There's one comment. You see one comment.
Hey.
He's like, oh, Waffle House.
It's 2v1. Let's go. You're still
Oh
outnumbered.
my gosh. We will see. After this video goes up, it's to be determined. Not in this video. But yes, FGP audience, Waffle House or IHOP.
One says neither. Oof.
Team Waffle or Team Pancakes? You see, I'm like the whole Twilight thing, Team Edward or Team... What's the other guy?
Speaking about awful movies.
Yeah, gosh. I'm like, yeah. But Team Pancake or Team Waffle? You choose. But yes. So, transitioning here to actually like movie reviews. So, out of restaurant reviews into movie reviews.
Yes.
Okay. Movie reviews, I understand that there's a certain extent of where, okay, there's objective things in a movie that certain people look for. Practical effects, this, that, the other thing, the directing, storyline, plot, all of these things. I get that. There's a certain element to movie critics nowadays that I don't understand.
I've never trusted movie critics.
Yeah.
At all. Like, there'd be a movie I'd go to see in the theater. It was a great movie. I enjoyed it. And then it would just get shitty reviews for some reason.
Yeah, for me, okay, I have to be honest. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one, all right? I'm just putting it out there. It's an honest take. Marvel movie universe. I like some movies, and there are some movies that I don't like. Doctor Strange, really good. Really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Captain America Civil War.
Okay, I thought you were going to shit on Iron Man for a second.
No.
We were going to have a fight.
No. Captain America Civil War. That movie got ridiculously good reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I loathed it. Genuinely loathed it. Every second. It was a waste of time as far as I'm concerned when I watched it.
Yeah, I didn't quite enjoy that one either.
I ended up watching it and I said, this isn't Civil War. This is Civil Dispute.
Oh, by the way, there's 2 now for Waffle House.
I'm not looking at the comments, so I'm just going to assume he's biased the whole time. And
No.
then I'll have this argument with him next week.
I'm never biased. That is false information.
It's fake news.
Fake news.
but yeah, I dreaded that movie, and it got such good reviews. I said this movie has no plot. It has no sound storyline to it. It has one really good fight sequence at the very end that is hardly worth watching the ridiculous amount of time that is in the rest of that movie to wait for that ending part. And then it was over quicker than I thought it was.
Yeah, there was a lot of dialogue in that one.
Yeah. It's like, as soon as they started fighting, they're like, oh, guys, why are we fighting? We should make up. And that was the end of that. I said, this is not good. This is not good. So, and again, like, there's some movies, the new Mad Max movie.
I have not seen that one.
Not so new anymore. It was new a little while ago, but Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, that was like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, but compared to the other Mad Maxes, it's really new.
Yeah, I guess.
But it got such good reviews, and I get it. It's really cool because they did all the practical effects. All the cars in that movie they built sort of by hand. They're all very real effects. There's such limited CGI in that movie.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's really good. But also, I don't go and watch a movie to say, hey, is that car real or CGI?
At this point, it's very difficult to tell the difference.
I
CGI is getting pretty damn good.
Yeah, and I don't care. Like, I just don't sit there. I'm like, is this movie interesting? Are the characters compelling? Should I continue to watch this movie? And that's what I go to watch it for.
Yeah, like you go to certain movies to expect certain things, like the Mortal Kombat movie. Like,
We gonna fight, Paul. Say a bad thing about that movie.
I will. Okay.
Say a bad thing about it, we gonna fight.
All right. It was awesome action wise.
Okay.
All right.
We agree.
The story was shit. Like practically non-existent.
No. I agree with you there. I agree with you. It was, the thing is, for me as a Mortal Kombat fan, Scorpion is my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And Scorpion's a character in the Mortal Kombat universe. For those of you unfamiliar with that, it's a video game that's been around.
They don't matter.
Since forever, right? And it was literally the video game that created the M rating for video games. Mature,
Is it?
Yeah, mature rating did not exist.
You know, like,
for Mortal Kombat.
No one listens to those ratings, right?
No.
M rating is supposed to be like 17 plus. There's like 13-year-olds playing the game.
Oh yeah, no. I got my first Mortal Kombat game when I think I was like 7.
I mean, I remember playing M games, so I can't really say much.
Yeah,
I remember playing Halo 2. That was great, actually.
Yeah, there's no swearing in Mortal Kombat, just really gory at times.
Very gory, actually.
So it's, but for me, for this movie, it was really focused on that enmity between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And for Mortal Kombat fans, that's like a really important rivalry. And I'm glad, because it never got the recognition it deserved. In any of the games, in any of the previous 2 films that existed, it didn't really get a lot of love. And I was really happy to see that sort of play out and, sort of come full circle. And I hope in the next one we get some actual plot.
Yeah, my brother says OG Mortal Kombat all the way. He doesn't like the newer ones.
Yeah. Okay, so the first Mortal Kombat movie in 1995, I think that one came out. Very, very good.
I don't
really
know
liked it. The original Mortal Kombat Annihilation. We've got some issues with that one.
Do we?
We do.
I don't quite remember this one.
They killed Johnny Cage in probably the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh, is that your big issue with that one?
Well, no, I'm not a big Johnny Cage fan, but I was sort of invested. It's the remake of Godzilla. The first one came out in like 2014. It was like Godzilla coming out. It's Godzilla roaring, starring Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston dies in the first 10 minutes of that movie. Anyone who came to see Walter White in that movie, forget it. They're like, oh, Walter White, Heisenberg, meet Godzilla. Yes! Right? No. He literally dies in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and it's Godzilla show. But that's another good movie where it was very low budget in the first one, but it made so much of a profit that they could put so much money into the next movies. And I think that they made good follow-up movies to that. And I hope Mortal Kombat goes through the same thing, where, they made a lower budget sort of film, really good action, but I hope they net a good amount and really make a beautiful second movie. Because there's things I want to see, like Shang Tsung's Island and all of the stuff that they could do really well.
Like the actual tournament.
Yes, exactly. I want to see, and that's the thing.
They were hyping up the tournament the entire time, and it never happened.
Never happened. But I don't think with today's standard, though, I really want to see. I don't want to see 1995. That was really good tournament for 1995. I want to see that for 2021. I need to see it to that standard now.
So one of the questions is, what's your based on true war stories or war movies? As an example, I forgot which one it was.
Like my favorite movie based on true war things?
No, he's just curious what your thoughts are on movies that are based off like true war.
Oh. So Black Hawk Down and
13 Hours.
Yeah, 13 Hours. Yeah, I think those movies can be compelling if done right. I think that there's a lot of respect thing. I know American Sniper, I'm not getting into this. I don't know nearly enough to get into this. I know there was a big controversy sort of around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using that as an example to say that can be a tricky thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Because you have situations that people actually live through, and they're really intense and very, violent and that sort of thing. And I think that using a compelling story, my preference would be someone listen to a compelling story, take that and reinvent it into something that is loosely based on it, but still fictional enough, and create a really nice plot. Like Saving Private Ryan.
Actually, someone just mentioned that.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's the only war movie where I actually cried in it. I'm not afraid to admit that, okay? I cried in Saving Private Ryan. Oof, it's a good movie and very compelling.
Yeah,
so
I'd say so.
Yeah, when the scene where, I forget the name of the character, but the young infantryman in that movie starts yelling out for his mom. Ooh, that hit hard. And that's, you see, those are elements that I think that they actually happen, but you make it a loosely based on history storyline, and you can make it very compelling in other ways. I think there's other ways to get around that. So, next thing you know, you do something based on someone's actual life, actual story, and you ruin it.
Yeah,
I don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah, that's kind of a huge responsibility right there.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. Someone who went away, fought, and came back. I'm not being responsible for that.
Stephen King hated his movie adaptation of his book. He fucking hated it.
Yeah, no, I don't. So it's tricky whether it's a book like that or anything else. I think it's always very, very tricky to get those things right.
I think converting books to movies is already tricky in general, because there's just a lot more content in the book itself, and you can't leave most of it out.
Yes. Lord of the Rings, very, very good. Hobbit, what the heck happened? what happened? That broke my heart. I was like, the first two Hobbits I was sort of on board with. I'm like, going. The third one, I got lost. I was like, what's going on? Even Katie got lost. She agrees.
Yeah.
She's over here agreeing with me. So, but yeah. That's a really good question, though. Thank you for that. about Saving Private Ryan? That's a really, really good question because I think it is really tricky to do. So, what is your favorite book to movie adaptation?
Book to movie adaptation. Hmm. Honestly, I'm not really sure.
And it can be comic book to movie as well, if that helps. Or that might just confuse you more.
I mean, I haven't read the Iron Man comic books, but I really like the Iron Man movies.
1, 2, and 3, right? There was 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
trying to think. Um, uh, which one? I'm trying to remember what happened in which movie, because they all kind of blend together. But I don't know. I don't think I quite liked the third one. I liked the first and second one, but I don't think the third one was as good as either of them.
Yeah, no. I thought the first one I remember was good. I can't remember who was the main villain in the first one. The second one was the first one was
His partner.
his partner. His partner. And then the second one was the electric guy. What's his name? He's got the electric whip. And I can't remember his name. Someone will. Someone will. Come on, comments. Come in clutch.
I don't know his name either.
Antagonist in Iron Man 2. And the third one was
Saying Whiplash?
Whiplash. Could be. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm just saying because that's the first thing that came up.
It makes sense a little bit.
I know he's got the electric whip. I know that that's a thing.
He's got two of them.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then the third one was that ridiculous Mandarin storyline.
Yeah, and people blowing themselves up
Oh gosh.
because of drugs.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that sort of lost the plot. But Iron Man, solid choice.
Yeah.
Solid choice. But yeah, I think movies are tricky enough to make when you're trying to understand, and I think that this sort of moves us to our next topic, where sort of the attitude to historical movies now, right? How
Yes, it is awful in my opinion.
yeah, like Turner Movie Classics, right? TMC, or Turner Classic Movies, TCM. I lost the plot on that. But the classic movies, they come up with certain, like, yeah, it's the movie equivalent of, this may cause cancer. Please, viewer discretion is advised. It says that there's some depiction of something that is insensitive by today's standard in the movie.
Basically trigger warnings.
Yeah, and the same thing is in Disney movies as well.
The old ones
Yes.
on Disney Plus now have trigger warnings.
Yes, like, and they're really vague. I was watching Aladdin, and it said, this movie may have a wrongful depiction of people from other cultures, something to that effect. I think they say at the beginning of it. It's very non-specific, and it just seems very, we did this to please people, and we really don't care if it's effective.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of pandering to certain groups at all.
Yeah.
I think you should just do what you want to do, and then people will hate it and people will like it, and that's end of story. Really, you can't please everyone in the world. It's not possible.
And I think, like, here's my take on it. First of all, I agree with that, but I'm like, a movie, when someone sits down to direct a movie or to write a movie script, they say, how do I capture something that's going on now, in the moment, and capture it in a way that I think is appropriate? It is meant to capture something in that time or in a previous time, if it's a historical movie, right? Or even if it's a futuristic movie. They're trying to capture something in it. So Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, not the remake, that was this really interesting idea of what the future was going to look like, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at something like Schindler's List, that discusses a very very disturbing time in human history when during the Holocaust and all of these things. And whether it's a Disney movie or like Aladdin, it depicts how people saw, Middle Eastern culture and all that stuff in that time period, in the 90s, right? Yeah. It can't just be taken out of context and say we're going to right the ship because this was wrong. It wasn't wrong for the time. And you can't take something that existed in a certain time, bring it to now, and say, we're now going to hold it in today's standards, and these people were clearly ignorant. They weren't ignorant for their time.
I think like the biggest issue that people are or that the extremist people are having, are certain races playing certain roles that aren't their own race. I feel like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder would get a lot of shit nowadays.
Oh yeah, you couldn't do that.
Like, I mean, he did his role really well. He was literally a white guy playing a black guy playing a Vietnamese guy.
Yeah, but you see, and that's my personal worry with this is that comedy makes generalizations. We don't know and make jokes at specific people. We make jokes at very broad circumstances.
Well, it's supposed to make fun of what things are nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to like lighten the mood about topics that are kind of, can be serious.
And look, if Tropic Thunder gets, like the equivalent of it gets made today, everyone hates it, nobody sees it, it's not funny then anymore, right? If no one's laughing at it, means no one's watching it, means it's not going to do well.
I think Tropic Thunder did well back then.
But when it came out, it was very successful. Everyone really liked it, right? So that's what I'm saying is that you can't take things out of context of sort of where they were. I think it's really important to understand that because, and also my biggest contention is, I don't think it works. What are you trying to accomplish by putting that disclaimer before any movie?
I guess protect or shelter people.
But the people who see that, who agree that something like that should be there,
probably won't watch the movie in the first place.
Well, they might watch the movie in the first place, but they already agree with the lack of bias, the understanding of diversity, and all of these things, and they're on board with that. You're not changing anybody's mind by putting that before a movie or putting that before anything. You're not helping the social discourse advance. At least I don't see evidence for that. That you are actually changing people's minds. People, oh, you know what? I saw this, thing on, this classic movie. I saw this thing before, Gone with the Wind, and that really changed my mind on how I saw people of color. It's not doing it.
I don't think that would ever change someone's mind. Typically, it's very difficult to change someone's mind. In fact, you can't change someone's mind by force. You have to convince them that it's their own idea for them to change their mind.
Exactly. Someone has to come to their own conclusion.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So, racists are going to be racist until they figure out that other races aren't that bad, essentially. There's one guy who, a black guy, made tons of friends that were in the KKK. And then once they realized he was a black guy, they were like, he's not that bad. And actually gave them gave him their robes as like a signal that they were leaving the KKK.
I know this guy. Yeah. He's actually a really interesting story. Again, after the podcast, you definitely want to check him out. He He's a jazz musician and actually started playing. I think he plays keyboards, and
Hmm.
he started playing at these different bars and that sort of thing. And I think the first time he ever did, he played at a gig that was in a like sort of
Well,
interesting
he's
area.
actually been to like KKK rallies,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is crazy.
He's a very very interesting guy, and like actually by sort of befriending,
But that's how you go about changing people's minds.
yeah,
You don't like, have a message before, a movie that's meant to like entertain people and,
yeah,
extract them from reality.
yeah,
You don't put that before then. And that just upsets people and puts them in an awful mood, in my opinion.
yeah. Because this guy's like the first time they see me, and I can carry an intelligent conversation. All of a sudden, is oh, you know what? This black guy's smart. Maybe because again, the KKK's mindset is that people of color are inferior in every way and so on, and he, not through any effort or yelling or shouting, but just by carrying on a normal conversation, shows them that hey, I'm intelligent. You came to my house for dinner. He's actually telling someone. He's like the first time I brought someone over to my house for dinner. He's like I didn't do that again. Right? He's like, I took it a little too far that time. My wife said, if I ever do that again, she's like, I'm gonna divorce you.
I mean,
Which,
it's
fair point.
kind of a huge risk.
Okay, I mean, I'm all for like extending olive branches and trying to, talk to people, even people I disagree with, on fundamental things like that. But heck, I'm not inviting over a clan member to my house for dinner. I don't want him to know where I live. I mean, that's guts. I don't think I have those kind of guts. So, but you're absolutely right. I think that's what changes people's minds when you bring it to their level.
And that kind of like gets us into like our kind of like last topic of tonight, which is like woke culture in general. I think they're going about it completely wrong. They're just shoving things down people's throats, and people aren't liking it. You can't force someone to do things.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that
Then I kind of disagree with their ideology. It's not what they like actually say it is. I think it's hurting us in general.
yeah, like I think that if someone is of the opinion, hey, let's I see this issue and it's an intense social cultural one, whatever it is. There are different ways of going about it, and I was actually listening to the Joe Rogan podcast,
Hmm.
and for those of you, actually, Nadia, one of our friends, Nadia, in the first podcast, she wrote a comment. She's like, Joe Rogan podcast, because there's a lot of inspiration for the style, the topics we cover, and everything from that podcast. There's a lot of inspiration taken from that.
Yes.
I like Joe Rogan for the fact that he brings on people he disagrees with. And I think he has very honest conversations with people and is very transparent and genuine. I appreciate those qualities in someone who has a platform or a podcast or whatever it is, and that's why Paul and I do what we do.
I've heard his deal with Spotify has been hurting him because they're censoring some of his videos.
Yeah, I can imagine because that's the thing. He brought someone on um, uh, uh, yesterday or something. The most recent one I think, and it's a gentleman. He's a lawyer who advocates for criminal justice reform and all of these things. He's part of the Innocence Project, which I hadn't heard of before, but the Innocence Project really looks at people who are nonviolent drug offenders who might have been sentenced incorrectly,
Mm-hmm.
and they use DNA data and all of this to reevaluate their sentences, not only get them out, get them reintegrated into society, and support their journey. Because some of them come out with like, did you know you can get prison or jail certification? So it's not like the one when you get when you're outside, but certified as a paralegal in jail.
You can actually get your law degree in jail.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was
You
like,
can actually, study law and other things in the jail library and such.
I mean, but this guy, like, apparently, um, one of his cases, right? This gentleman was sentenced to life,
Hmm.
right? For a minor drug offense, and well, minor drug offense. You make up your mind about that. But what happened is this guy got sentenced for life, right?
Hmm.
And he's like, okay, this is very clearly someone that we need to, and this guy wound up like one of his clients is someone who he disagrees with politically,
Hmm.
was a big fan of the former president, this client of his.
Hmm.
He personally is not, right? But he was using this story to illustrate an example of why just shooing someone away because they disagree with you politically and branding them and name calling them and all of that is actually really not good, because this guy's like, I brought up this topic to this gentleman who's like ridiculously rich, like billionaire many times over, right? And he's like, I brought this up, and the guy's like, and really brought the humanity
Hmm.
of this gentleman's case who's been wrongfully accused in prison for like 30 years, really brought the humanity to him. And he's like, yeah, you know what? I agree. This person needs help. Okay. And he's like, it just so happened in December, they were all in Florida. This gentleman invites him to dinner at Mar-a-Lago,
Hmm.
and this lawyer gets to talk to then President Trump about this case,
Hmm.
right? And he's like, he made a couple of jokes about the dinner. You can watch it on YouTube after the podcast is over. But I think it's a really interesting story because on the last day, because this was a week before the Capitol riot happened, just a week before June 6th, right? And he's like, President Trump then he got on board with it. He's like, yep, I think this person deserves, is a pardon. And because he's like, he's like, oh, because he saw the reason and that a friend of his sort of brought this case to him and brought it up to him. And this guy's like, really, the last day of the former president's, the time in office, because after June 6th, the White House offices are calling everyone, no pardons are going through.
January 6th.
January 6th, sorry. January 6th. The guy's like, the White House office calls everyone, no more pardons are going through. There's nothing happening now after January 6th, right? Last day of the presidency.
Mm.
Yep, the White House is on the phone. They're going to send the pardon signed and it's coming through, right?
Yeah.
Now, irrespective of if that changed the former president's mind, it changed this gentleman's mind who saw criminal justice reform, the Innocence Project, all of this stuff in a very different light, right? But because of this experience and because of actually getting personally involved in it, right, he now is operating a big charitable fund for criminal justice reform.
Mm.
It goes to show you that even though someone's not necessarily of your shares your views or shares your opinions or whatever, open-mindedness is one, very important, and two, not pushing away the people who are very clearly open-minded and trying to, state your point in a way that's receptive.
Well, I think that's like the current issue with the climate right now. Is that uh, there's a lot of name calling and there's no real discussion at all.
Yeah.
They just discredit you completely based off of obscure things and names.
Yeah.
And then, there's no discussion there. They just won't talk about any issues. You're either with them or you're a Nazi.
Yeah, but no, but that, like, think of just within the last, I'm just going to use the last 4 years because that's a particularly interesting time, right?
Mm.
You're either a Trump supporter, a radical leftist, right? Antifa, a Proud Boy, a deplorable, right? All of these names are things that have cropped up just most recently.
What happened to just being an American?
Yeah, just being a person. Okay, Canadian year,
Well,
who's also an American, admittedly.
now you're
But
American.
I mean, yeah. Now I'm both, Paul. Let me make something very clear.
No, you're American
Now
now.
I'm both.
See, American supersedes that of a Canadian.
You see, this is the problem. No.
Number one,
Number one.
USA. You.
Gosh. Okay.
No, stop.
Yeah. Before I make our audience ears bleed. But no, but seriously, like, I think that obscures things so much. It takes everyone, puts them in a very convenient box where you don't have to, very relevant one. You're either for the vaccine or you're an anti-vaxxer. That's it.
There's like no in between with that either.
There's my big issue is that there's no curiosity. I'm totally for the vaccine. But when someone says that they're against the vaccine, my mind goes, why? I'm genuinely interested. Why someone feels that way.
I feel like nowadays, if you say you're against the vaccine, you're a conservative Nazi.
Well,
that's immediately what I think some people jump to.
but I mean, if again, dabbling in the political thing of that, the left is just as, if not more, a little bit, the anti-vax thing is just as prominent there as it is anywhere else. I mean, that is not something that I think can be drawn in lines like that. Some things are and are done like that, but I don't think that that's. But my thing is where's the curiosity? Someone's like, I'm never gonna get vaccinated, but you already got vaccinated for polio, right? Yeah. Okay, what changed? Now we have a discussion.
He has autism.
Right? But even
from the vaccine.
Even that is a discussion. Like, we can go with that because there's, and getting to sort of ish. But when we have our special guests on, I've already told them that these are some of the things that, especially with the microbiologist who's going to be on here in 2 weeks from now, are things that I'm going to discuss. The 23rd.
23rd.
June 23rd. The microbiologist is going to be on here. And
we have 2 guests coming in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, but that's one of the things, because I was like, it's not, for, again, 2 of us being in science and want to be PhDs and want to be involved in this community, I don't think it's at all a good mentality to be with, to just, oh, they're an anti-vaxxer, oh, they're stupid, and that's all the conversation it is to it. That's ridiculous.
I feel like being a scientist, I'm always skeptical about everything.
Skeptical?
Skeptical. Skeptical.
There you go, buddy.
About everything.
It's payback for the Waffle House.
Fair. Waffle House still superior. That's all right.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, there's always like an innate question about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just take everything to face value.
Yeah, because
and you shouldn't take everything to face value.
Yeah, someone's just like, because to me, I can hear when someone's talking to me, and I can tell they're just rattling off whatever they just heard on the news. I don't care which news site it is. I'm just hearing that. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily what they actually feel. How and why they agree with what they heard on the news. And that's the point I'm interested to getting to. Because I feel like that's the layer that intrigues me and tells me how this person is thinking.
I think a lot of times it's just because they told them so.
But maybe
this person said this, so it must be true.
I think there's some of that, but I think that people lean in certain ways, and then what is said, and then they bend.
Oh, there's definitely a confirmation bias if it already agrees with their ideas.
Exactly. So I'm like, there's a reason why a person leans in one direction and then bends over in that direction, right? So my thing is, why were they leaning in that direction in the first place? Mm-hmm. And when I talk to people, and that's exactly what that gentleman, I so upset I'm forgetting his name. He's a really, and I've heard him play jazz too. I've seen one of his YouTube videos where he's playing his keyboard. He's really good. But that's, well, why? Why do because you're in the KKK, you're going to talk about things that are in their doctrines and their this and their that. But why did you feel that way in the first place? You didn't grow up around people with color. You didn't do this. But these people were raised with certain values that someone of color might even share with them, right? How do you get to a conversation more about that and the common ground aspects of it?
I think nowadays people's worldviews are just so completely separated that there's no common ground for them to discuss on.
Yeah, I mean, there might, but I think that, some people still grow up with, like, certain values. It's like, if I did something stupid, my parents were like, right?
I remember getting the belt.
Right? It's
Nowadays you can't do that.
right. But I mean,
And
even with that, there's ways that that's communicated. There's ways in which that's done.
I kind of believe it's kind of making the next generation a little bit weaker.
The whooping will make you stronger.
Yeah, basically. Essentially, you keep sheltering people against, things that eventually would attribute to making them stronger.
Yeah, like, I clearly don't have brain damage from it. But but no, to your point where I think that is sometimes an important point where it's, sometimes sheltering is rarely a good idea.
I don't think it's, to an extent,
Yeah,
depending on age.
See, rare.
But there's a curve where you don't shelter them about anything, essentially. But like you slowly introduce them to these things, but like you can't like just throw them in the lion pit right away.
Yeah.
You just have to slowly bring them up to more things that they can handle at that time.
And I'm pretty sure people who watch this video and be like, yeah, wait till you two become fathers or parents. It's like, then you'll see. Because, I mean, heck, my best friend and my sister both had children over the past, like, 3 months now? 4 months? Yikes, it's been a while. I'm like, June, May, April, March, yeah. Over the past 4 months. And I can see even them just in good ways, in just positive ways. But a lot of it is developing like parental instincts. And I think that's really important. Because I think a lot of people try to parent from a book sometimes.
Well, I think discipline has a huge factor on how your child grows up eventually. There are wrong ways to discipline. It's almost like training an animal. Which goes into like the Pavlov's behavior of
Good child.
Conditioning. Essentially, when they do things good, you give them a reward, and when they do things bad, you give them a bad reward.
You know what's the best? Because people are like, "Oh, getting sent to your room in timeout is soft." I'm gonna push back.
I was never sent to my room. I was kicked out of my room. Instead of sending me to the room, they were like, "Go sit in the living room or go outside."
They're like, either put him in the sun or force him to have social interaction. That's Paul's punishment.
Yeah, it's awful. It's my own hell.
Oh my gosh. But the best form of discipline, my Taekwondo master, he had, again, before COVID, it's sort of coming back now, hopefully a little bit. He had an after-school program where, kids come from, the different schools, especially elementary schools, around the county. And they come and they go and they do their homework. They do a Taekwondo class. And it's really great. He runs a great program. Having that many kids, though, you're going to have disciplinary issues, right? And learning martial arts is, you can't ever be like violence is the last resort. That's what you're taught. Use violence to defend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he had a timeout. He got these hourglasses. All right. There was a 1 minute hourglass. There was a 2 minute hourglass. There was a 5 minute hourglass, and then there's a 10 minute hourglass.
Mm-hmm.
Each time a kid misbehaved, it was go in the corner, and when you get to the corner, you flip the hourglass over,
Mm-hmm.
and you start at the 1 minute. The next time you do something bad, you go to the 2 minutes. Then you go to the 5, and you go. And he's like, by the time they get to the 5, because the 1 and 2 aren't bad.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they get to the 5, and they turn it over, and they see how slow that sand is falling, he's like, I said, that is brilliant. That is a brilliant form of timeout.
Well, I was discussing with you earlier about I would actually be interested in making it mandatory for schools to teach self-defense classes, whether it be taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, because that teaches discipline and control.
I like that. I'm all for that idea.
And I believe that is necessary for people to have a structured and healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, because again, like I'm pardon this, but my master's pretty forthcoming with this information. He's like, I'm sure I have ADHD, man. It just he's like, it just wasn't picked up when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, this was really good at letting me know how to cope with that.
I think a lot of people also like get told they have a disability and then rely on that fact that they have a disability to kind of like an excuse to not do things or do things.
I think there's some of that, but I think that because like my master now, right? Like he's very cut and dry. He's not someone who's looking for a handout or an excuse,
Mm-hmm.
but he's like, this was something that actually helped me cope with this. And we've had different students come with like sound sensitivity or, people on the autism spectrum or whatever it may be. And they're kids and they find going through that process with him very, very, very like going through classes and being in an environment
Has there
very positive.
ever been a psych study about self-defense courses in children with disabilities?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think it'd be interesting.
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to it. I'd be so interested in looking at that.
Because if he's seeing those results with those kind of children in a positive manner, like all of them,
Yeah.
maybe this is a method to, help most of them.
Because it teaches you, like, you get very constructive and it's, okay, this is for, especially people with ADHD
Mm-hmm.
and, like, sort of this hyperactivity. Going through a taekwondo class, trust me, that will burn some energy, man.
Yeah.
But you also learn, again, he's very good with his instruction and pointing that out. That'd be really interesting. I will certainly discuss with like people about that and look it up on like Google Scholar and that. That'd be really cool.
So we're gonna start a petition to the Florida government mandating self-defense courses in schools.
You know what? We got the No Politics Day on Sunday. We got the petition going for self-defense in schools.
Yeah.
Look,
Let's make change happen.
No. I'm good for it. And that brings us to sort of our guess in the last few minutes here.
Yeah.
Because you know who'd be a great person to ask that to?
Dr. Mundos?
Dr. James Munoz.
Yeah.
That would be a great person to ask that to. Dr. James Munoz is a neuroscientist at Nova Southeastern University, and he's going to be joining us, fingers crossed, should everything work out nicely, in person next week. And he's going to be talking about all sorts of neuroscience things. A little bit about his path to neuroscience has been really interesting.
Yeah.
A little bit about him as an individual. He's a great person, a big personality. Okay? Y'all think I'm loud.
Apparently, he's also a big person in general.
he's a great person to talk to. And most importantly, we want our audience to be involved in that conversation. So, to our wonderful audience members who looked through this podcast and have joined us for 5 episodes so far, I will post to social media. I'll put it on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to follow us, it's at God Potpourri. On both Facebook and Instagram, search up Food God and Other Potpourri. On Facebook, it'll come up our page. Like and follow us so you don't miss our post. Because I will post sometime next week, either Monday or Tuesday, to post your questions. And Paul and I will sit before, pick the best questions, and ask Dr. Munoz at the end of next week's podcast.
I think we should give him more time. Maybe post it this weekend.
Maybe post it in the weekend? Yeah, okay. I can post it on Sunday.
Just so
No Politics Day. I'll post it on No Politics Day. You see how I string it together?
Okay. Yeah.
You see how I string it together?
And you guys you can ask any question you'd like.
Any question you'd like. What's your favorite type of fruit? That we'll consider. We can't promise we'll pick it, but you can put it, and we will consider it, and we will laugh at the very least.
Like, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Yeah, right. But if you have anything particularly related to the field of neuroscience and the brain and how that works, that is definitely his field of expertise. So if you have any questions about that stuff, definitely put it there on our social. So you have to look at our social media posts and keep in tune with that.
It's a requirement.
It's a requirement. You're required. Forcing you to. Force everything. Don't force anything down people's throat except our social media.
Sorry, you've been voluntold.
You've been voluntold. But yeah, so Dr. Munoz is going to come next week, which is the 16th, right? Yeah, 16th.
Yes.
June 16th. That's going to be an hour and a half long podcast. I know we've been getting a lot of requests that the podcast over a little short. So especially with a special guest, there's no way I'm doing an hour.
I don't think we can. Maybe we won't even cover everything in an hour and a half.
Yeah, so we're going to extend it a little bit longer with Dr. Munoz, and we're really appreciative of his time. So next week will be Dr. Munoz, and then on the 23rd, we're going to have Dr. Robert Smith, also from Nova Southeastern University. He's an expert in genetics, and particularly his training is in microbiology, which is fancy word for bacteria and viruses. So he's I call him a more handsome, taller, more intelligent, and Canadian Fauci. So better in every way possible, and funnier. So he will probably join us via Zoom on the 23rd. Again, we're going to start at 8 p.m., and that's going to be an hour and a half long podcast as well. And we're going to really pick his brain. Of course, COVID is going to be a huge focus of that.
Yes.
So keep on a lookout. After Dr. Munoz and all that, I'll have another social media post where you can post all your questions for Dr. Robert Smith the following week to talk about COVID things. And you can also ask him what his favorite kind of dinosaur is.
No, you can't use the question twice.
Well.
No, it's not allowed.
Well, then what's his favorite type of brew? All right.
Yes.
So, but we still have these very, very special guests coming on. We can't be more appreciative of their time, and we're appreciative of your contribution as well as our audience. So we really want you to be included in the conversation. We hope we get some great content and have a lot of fun. So,
yes. Yeah.
That brings us sort of to the end of episode 5 of the podcast. These fly by, man.
Yeah, they kind of do. So, like every podcast, we're going into the last segment, Wise Words with Akshay.
Wise Words with Akshay. All right.
I swear he's never ready for these.
Never. It's always a surprise. I'm like, oh, I have to say this at the end of the podcast. And then you just always hits me with the wise words. Okay. So the wise words for this week. Even if you don't think you have something in common with someone, try to find the ground in which you two have. Try to find the common ground. Most of the time, in my experience, it is there.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.